Welcome to the Lincoln Bio Podcast, your one-stop destination for life-changing insights on health, wealth, legal education, relationships, and more. Ready to level up? Let's dive into the knowledge designed to transform your life.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive that I think is really going to hit close to home for a lot of us.
Yeah.
It's all about our brains in this digital age. We're diving into this guide called Reclaim Your Brain, a fun and practical guide to breaking free from digital overload. Because honestly, I mean, who hasn't felt that brain fog, after like hours of endlessly scrolling? My question is this like just a feeling, or is there actually like something happening in our brains?
Well, it's funny you should say that. This guide that we're talking about really dives into the neuroscience of it all.
Yeah.
And it actually turns out that, like how much we depend on technology can change how our brains work.
Really?
Sometimes not in a good way.
Okay, so no more blaming Monday mornings for my mental fumbles. All right, so give us the details. What's actually going on up there?
So think about it this way.
Okay.
If you're using GPS all the time, like all the time,
Oh, yeah. Guilt.
your brain's own spatial reasoning. You know the part that used to build those mental maps? It gets, kind of rusty. Actually, the guide even mentions a bunch of studies where people who super rely on GPS, they actually show a decline in those skills, like a measurable decline.
Wow.
It's almost like our brain is outsourcing the job,
Yeah.
And then those neural pathways that we don't use, they kind of just weaken.
Wow, that's kind of unsettling. So it's not just me feeling lost without Google Maps. It's like my brain just forgot how to be a compass. What else is in this guide? Like, what other examples?
Well, it gets even more interesting. The guide talks about the impact of spell check
Oh, interesting.
on our spelling abilities. We just rely on it so much that we don't even catch our own mistakes anymore.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah.
Like our brains are just saying, hey, spell check's got this.
Okay, I'm totally guilty of that one.
Yeah.
It's like I've fully outsourced my spelling skills to a computer. So basically what we're saying is our brains are getting lazy because technology is doing all the thinking for us.
Yeah, kind of, in a way. And
Yeah.
it actually, this goes way beyond just GPS and spell check. Okay.
Think about all the notifications that we get bombarded with every day.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started.
I know, right?
Yes.
Emails, texts, social media updates. It's just a constant stream of distractions.
It never ends.
It's true.
Yeah.
And, all of those interruptions, it makes it really hard to focus on anything. Anything that requires sustained attention.
Oh yeah, that makes total sense. It's like trying to read a book while someone's constantly tapping you on the shoulder. No wonder I can barely finish an article these days without getting sidetracked. Okay, so what's the solution here? Are we all doomed to just become like these tech-addled zombies?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
That's where this guy, it actually really shines because it's packed with all of these practical tips and strategies for how to reclaim our brains from digital overload.
All right.
It's really all about making conscious choices about how and when we use technology.
Okay, so less doom and gloom, more action plan. So give us a sneak peek. What are some of the key takeaways? Okay, well, the first step is probably the hardest, I think. It's like real self-assessment.
Yeah.
Honest self-assessment.
Yeah.
The guide suggests using, there are apps that actually track your screen time.
Yeah.
Or even just journaling, your tech usage for a couple of days.
Right.
The key is getting a clear picture of where your time is actually going.
Yeah, I have a feeling those results might be a bit scary for some people.
Yeah, probably true.
But after you face the facts, then what? What's the next step?
Well, the guide emphasizes setting realistic goals. Don't try to go cold turkey overnight.
Yeah.
Instead, think about one small change you can make today.
Okay.
Maybe it's just silencing notifications during dinner or putting your phone away an hour before bed.
So small steps lead to big changes. I like it. What else stood out to you in the guide?
The idea of creating tech-free zones, it really spoke to me.
Oh, interesting.
The guide suggests picking some areas in your home, like the dining table.
Okay.
Or your bedroom even.
Yeah, makes sense.
And designate those as no phone zones.
Right.
It not only reduces your overall screen time, but it encourages those deeper conversations.
Absolutely.
And better sleep.
That's a great point. I know I'm way more present and engaged in conversations when my phone is out of sight and out of mind. So we've talked about the scary stuff. We've talked about some solutions.
Yeah.
But is this whole reclaiming our brains thing all about deprivation? Is it just cutting stuff out.
No, not at all.
Okay.
The guide actually suggests some fun activities
Okay.
that can actually boost our cognitive skills and just make this whole process more enjoyable.
All right, so we're going to talk about the fun stuff when we come back.
Exactly.
Stay with us.
Welcome back. So we were just starting to talk about the fun side of reclaiming your brain.
Right. It's like remembering that there's a whole life that existed before smartphones and constant notifications.
No, I know.
So what are some of those fun activities that we can do that can help our brains?
Well, one that really caught my eye in the guide is it's called the Great Offline Challenge. Have you heard of this?
No, tell me more.
So basically, the idea is to spend like a full 24 hours, like a whole day, completely unplugged.
Oh, wow. Whole day.
Yeah, and they actually suggest getting your friends or family involved, like turning it into this kind of shared experience.
Ooh, I like that. It's like a digital detox party.
Mm-hmm.
But what do people actually do with all that offline time? Is it just board games by candlelight? Do we all suddenly become like expert whittlers?
I mean, you could if you wanted to, but no, they actually emphasize activities that help you reconnect with yourself and others.
Okay.
You know, things like having actual conversations face to face, playing games, reading books, like rediscovering all those simple joys that don't require a screen.
Right.
It's about being present in the moment.
Yeah, there's something kind of appealing about that, you know?
Yeah.
Just like hitting the reset button on your brain and remembering how to just be. But honestly, some of us might need a little more structure than just go be offline. What else does the guide suggest?
Well, it actually goes into memory boosting games.
Oh, and interesting.
And not like, you know, the kiddie kind of.
Right.
There are actually apps that are designed for adults
Really?
that challenge your cognitive skills in all these fun ways.
Okay.
I actually tried one recently that involved memorizing these like patterns and sequences,
Oh, cool.
and it was surprisingly addictive.
Okay, so less Candy Crush, more brain training boot camp.
Right, exactly.
But it's got to be more engaging than just like memorizing lists, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. These games, they tap into different cognitive functions
Right.
like focus and logic and problem solving, often with like engaging visuals and challenges. It's like sneaking in a mental workout while you're having fun.
I'm intrigued. I might have to check those out. But what about people who aren't into the whole gaming thing? Are there other offline activities that the guide recommends?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
They're big proponents of creative hobbies,
Okay, like what?
like painting,
Yeah.
knitting, gardening, things like that. Activities that engage our hands and minds, but in a totally different way than, you know, the digital world.
Yeah, I get that. There's something so satisfying about creating something tangible, something you can actually hold and see the results of your effort. It's a different kind of reward than getting like likes on social media, you know?
Totally. It's about tapping into that, like, that innate human desire to create
Right.
and to express ourselves and to just, like, find joy in the process of making something.
Okay, I love that. So we've got the offline challenges.
Yep.
We've got brain games
Yeah.
and creative pursuits.
Uh-huh.
But let's be real here for a second. Most of us aren't going completely off the grid anytime soon.
No, probably not.
So how does this guide approach that whole tech in moderation thing?
Yeah, it's not about, like, demonizing technology, you know?
Yeah.
It's about using it consciously and purposefully.
Okay.
One key concept is managing screen time.
Yeah.
So the guide recommends setting, like, specific times for checking your email and
Oh, okay.
social media
Right.
rather than constantly being, like, reactive to it, you know?
So setting boundaries, not letting tech just like dictate every move we make.
Exactly.
I like that.
Mhm.
Any specific strategies for actually sticking to those boundaries? Because that's the hard part.
Well, the guide actually, they love app timers.
App timers. Okay.
There are all sorts of apps out there that can track your usage and even block certain websites or apps during specific times.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like having a little digital bodyguard for your attention span.
Oh, those could be lifesavers. I've used those before to break my late night scrolling habit. It's amazing how much time you can reclaim when you're not mindlessly just swiping and swiping.
Right. It adds up.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
What other tech in moderation tips does the guide have?
Well, they talk a lot about incorporating digital detox practices into your routine.
Okay.
So things like having screen-free meals,
Okay.
putting your phone away like an hour before bed,
Right.
or designating certain days as, you know, like unplugged days.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I tried that no phone before bed thing for a week, and I was surprised by how much better I slept.
Really?
It's like my brain finally had a chance to wind down without that constant blue light
It
stimulation.
makes such a difference, right?
It really does,
Not just for sleep, but like your overall well-being.
for sure. The guide also talks a lot about the importance of face-to-face interactions.
Yes. It's so crucial.
Like making an effort to actually meet up with friends and family in person.
Yeah.
Having conversations where you're truly present and engaged, not just like half listening while you're scrolling through Instagram.
I know. It's so easy to get caught up in that.
Right.
We've all been there, you know?
Yeah, I think we've all experienced those moments where everyone's sitting together, but everyone's also on their phones. It's like we're physically together, but mentally we're miles apart.
Exactly. And the guide really argues that prioritizing those real-world connections, it's crucial for our social and emotional well-being.
Okay.
It's about remembering that, like, human connection isn't something you can fully replicate through a screen.
So true. So reclaiming our brains isn't just about like individual focus and productivity. It's about fostering this healthier relationship with technology and, and with each other.
Yeah, it's all connected.
But I'm curious, beyond all these tips, does the guide talk about the why behind this tech addiction? Like, why are we so hooked on these devices?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
The guide actually explores, like, the psychology behind our tech habits.
Okay.
And specifically, like, how these apps and platforms, they're designed to keep us hooked.
Okay, spill the tea. I always suspected there's some sneaky science behind those endlessly scrolling feeds and all the notifications.
Yeah, you're right. There totally is.
Oh my God.
The guide talks about how these app designers, they use all these principles of behavioral psychology
Oh, wow.
to, like, tap into our natural desire for, like, novelty and connection and reward. You know, those likes and notifications, they trigger these little bursts of dopamine in our brains, which makes us just crave more.
It's like a drug.
Basically.
So it's not just our lack of willpower, it's that these apps are literally designed to exploit our brain chemistry.
Yep, that's exactly it.
That makes you want to throw your phone out the window, doesn't it?
It does a little bit, but that's why understanding, like, the psychology behind these design tactics, it's so important.
Okay.
Because it helps us be more mindful and intentional about how we interact with technology.
So it's about taking back control, not letting those sneaky algorithms rule our lives.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, what are some of the long-term benefits of all this brain reclaiming? Is it just about like feeling less frazzled in the moment, or are there actual lasting impacts?
Well, the guide suggests that there are tons of potential benefits, both for individuals and, like, society as a whole.
Okay, so like big picture stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some of the individual benefits that people can experience?
Well, one of the biggest is, like, improved cognitive function.
Okay, so how so?
So by reducing distractions and engaging in activities that, like, actually challenge our brains,
Right.
we can actually strengthen our memory, our attention spans, and even our critical thinking skills.
So it's not just about like feeling sharper, it's about actually being sharper.
Exactly.
Like giving our brains a much needed workout.
Right, exactly that.
I like that.
And the guide argues that these cognitive benefits, they have this, like, ripple effect on all areas of our lives.
Okay. How
Like our work, our relationships, our overall well-being.
Yeah, I can see that. Like being more focused and present can definitely impact everything from like how well you do your job to how deeply you connect with other people.
Totally.
But are there benefits beyond just like thinking better?
Oh, for sure.
Like what?
Well, they also talk about enhanced creativity.
Okay.
So, like, when we're constantly being bombarded with, like, information and stimulation,
Right.
our brains, they don't have the space to just kind of wander, to make those new connections, to come up with those fresh ideas.
It's like our creative juices get clogged up with all the digital noise.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you're saying is that stepping away from the screen can actually unlock our creative potential.
That's the idea.
Interesting.
The guide encourages activities that allow for, like, free-flowing thought and exploration,
Yeah.
whether it's through, you know, writing, art, music, or even just spending time in nature.
Oh, nature walks for creativity.
Yeah.
Like that.
Just being in that environment,
Yeah.
it can do wonders.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's be honest, sometimes we need a little more motivation than just, like, it's good for you.
I know, right?
So does this guide talk about any, like, feel-good benefits of reclaiming our brains?
Definitely.
Okay, good.
It really emphasizes the emotional and mental health benefits of reducing screen time
Yep.
and engaging in offline activities.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of research that shows that excessive tech use can actually contribute to stress and anxiety, even depression.
That makes sense. It's like our brains are just on overdrive trying to process all that information and stimulation.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
No wonder we feel burned out.
I know.
So you're saying that by consciously disconnecting from the digital world, we can give our brains a chance to, like, rest and recharge.
Exactly.
Which can lead to a greater sense of, like, calm and well-being.
Absolutely.
Okay, less stress, more chill, I'm on board. But I have to ask about sleep, because I know I've been guilty of scrolling through social media in bed, even though I know it's terrible for my sleep.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah. So the guide talks about this.
Yeah, it addresses that directly.
Uh-huh.
It talks about how the blue light that's emitted from screens, it can actually disrupt our natural sleep cycles,
Right.
making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that, like, wired but tired feeling
Yeah.
after too much screen time before bed.
It's the worst.
It really is.
So yeah, putting away those devices, it can actually lead to better sleep.
Okay, so what's the solution?
Well, they recommend establishing like a digital curfew.
Okay, I like that.
So avoiding screens for at least an hour before bed.
Okay.
And maybe even creating like a calming bedtime routine.
Okay.
That involves, reading, taking a bath, or listening to relaxing music, anything that helps signal to your brain that it's time to wind down.
It's like giving your brain a bedtime story instead of a Twitter feed.
Exactly.
I like that. So we've covered the cognitive benefits, the creativity boost, the emotional well-being, and even sleep.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything else this guide considers a perk of reclaiming our brains?
One of the most compelling arguments that it makes is for like the social benefits of a less tech-dependent life.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It talks about how all this excessive screen time, it can actually lead to social isolation. Right. And even like a decline in our real-world communication skills.
It's like we're so busy connecting online that we're forgetting how to connect in person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the guide emphasizes the importance of those face-to-face interactions for building strong relationships, for developing empathy, and just for like navigating social situations effectively.
Right.
It suggests making a conscious effort to prioritize real-world connections over the digital ones.
So reclaiming our brains isn't just about individual benefits.
Right.
It's about safeguarding the social fabric that holds us together as a society.
I think so.
It's about pushing back against this culture that prioritizes digital connection over real human interaction.
Absolutely.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the neuroscience of digital overload to those practical tips for reclaiming our brains.
Yeah.
And even the psychology behind, like, tech addiction.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is.
And so relevant to, like, everyone's life these days.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm wondering, does this guide offer any insights into how this digital overload is impacting, like, society as a whole?
That's a great question, and one that the guide tackles head on.
Okay.
It doesn't just focus on the individual impacts, it explores how our tech dependence is shaping, like, our education systems, our political discourse.
Wow, that's interesting.
And even our sense of community.
Okay, we're going to get into all that when we come back.
Sounds good.
Stay with us.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Reclaim Your Brain. We're getting into the big picture stuff now, how this digital overload isn't just a personal problem, it's like shaping our whole world.
Yeah, that's a really crucial point the guide makes. Think about it in terms of education. Like, how can students really focus deeply when they're constantly being bombarded with notifications, or they're just so used to getting information in like these bite-sized chunks?
Yeah, it's like we're training our brains for distraction instead of, deep thought. So does the guide offer any solutions for, like, how to deal with this in education?
It talks about this two-pronged approach.
Okay.
First, educators, they need to like adapt their methods,
Right.
create learning environments that actually minimize those digital distractions and encourage more focused engagement. Think more like project-based learning, collaborative activities, things that tap into like intrinsic motivation rather than just passive consumption of information.
So less lecturing at rows of screens, more active and engaging learning experiences.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But it's not just the teachers, right? Parents have a role to play in this too.
Oh, absolutely. The guide really emphasizes how important it is for parents to model healthy tech habits themselves and to set clear boundaries for their kids. It's about creating those tech-free zones at home,
Yeah.
encouraging those offline activities and having those open conversations about responsible tech use.
Yeah, it's that whole lead by example thing, right?
I agree.
Kids are way more likely to adopt healthy habits if they see their parents actually doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But beyond the classroom, this digital overload thing impacts other areas of society too, right? What does the guide say about its influence on, like, politics?
This is where it gets I think, really interesting. The guide argues that the way we consume information online, it can actually make us more susceptible to misinformation and manipulation.
Really?
Think about those echo chambers that we get stuck in on social media,
Yeah.
where we're only exposed to viewpoints that already, reinforce our existing beliefs.
Right, yeah. It's like we're living in these filter bubbles where everyone just agrees with us all the time, and any opposing view is just noise that we need to block out. So how do we break free from those echo chambers? How do we actually engage in more constructive political discourse?
The guide talks a lot about the importance of becoming more discerning consumers of information.
Okay.
It encourages us to actively seek out diverse perspectives, to question our own biases,
Right.
and to be wary of information that's just designed to trigger those strong emotional reactions.
So it's about being critical thinkers, not just passive scrollers.
Yeah.
Fact-checking sources, considering different viewpoints.
Yeah.
Not just, hitting that share button because something makes us angry or just reinforces what we already believe.
Exactly. It's about engaging in respectful dialogue.
Yeah.
Even when we disagree with someone, It's about remembering that the person on the other side of that screen is a human being just like us.
Yeah.
With their own experiences and perspectives.
It's that whole humanity over ideology thing.
Exactly.
It's easy to forget that when we're just firing off tweets or arguing in the comment sections. But beyond education and politics, this digital overload thing, it must be impacting our sense of community too, right?
For sure.
Are we losing those real-world connections?
Yeah, that's actually a major concern that the guide raises.
Okay.
It argues that because we're increasingly relying on those virtual interactions, right,
it's eroding our ability to actually connect with people in real life, face to face.
Yeah, it's we're forgetting how to read body language, pick up on those social cues, and have those spontaneous, unscripted moments that make those real life connections so much richer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the guide suggests that this decline in social skills, it can have far-reaching consequences.
Okay.
Leading to increased loneliness, social anxiety, and just a weakening of those community ties.
So reclaiming our brains isn't just about individual well-being.
Right.
It's about safeguarding that social fabric that holds us together as a society.
I agree.
It's about pushing back against this culture that prioritizes digital connection over, real human interaction.
I think that's a really good way to put it.
Okay. So what can we actually do about this? As individuals, how can we contribute to this shift? It's easy to feel overwhelmed by, the enormity of it all.
I know it can feel like that.
But the guide really emphasizes that, even our individual actions, when you multiply those across millions of people, it creates this powerful ripple effect.
I like that.
So it starts with, becoming more mindful of our own tech habits and setting a good example for others.
So leading by example.
Yeah.
Being those, weirdos who actually put their phones away during dinner.
I know, right?
Or resist the urge to scroll during a conversation.
It's hard, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it's also about, being conscious consumers,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Supporting those companies that prioritize ethical design and digital well-being.
Yeah.
And advocating for policies that promote responsible tech development.
Absolutely. Voting with our wallets and our voices.
Exactly. And let's not forget, the power of conversation. Just talking to our friends and family about these issues. It can raise awareness and normalize these healthier tech habits.
Yeah, it's amazing how much change can happen when people just start having those open and honest conversations about their struggles with tech,
Yeah.
and their desire for a more balanced life.
It's like we're giving each other permission to log off and live a little,
Totally.
One thing that really struck me while I was reading this guide was its emphasis on finding joy and fulfillment in the offline world.
Yes.
It's not just about, limiting tech. It's about rediscovering the beauty and wonder of the analog world.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
The guide reminds us that there's this whole world out there beyond the screen, a world full of rich experiences, meaningful connections, and just endless possibilities for exploration and growth.
So it's not about demonizing technology.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming our right to disconnect, to engage with the world on our own terms,
Yeah.
and to rediscover the things that truly bring us joy and meaning.
Beautifully said. It's about remembering that technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. Yeah.
It's up to us to decide how we wield it.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Reclaim Your Brain, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Oh, I love a good challenge.
For the next week, I dare you to try one new offline activity every single day.
Ooh, I like that.
It could be anything from taking a walk in nature, to reading a book, to learning a new skill, to just having a face-to-face conversation with someone you care about.
Yeah.
The key is to disconnect from the digital world and reconnect with yourself, with others, and with the world around you.
Yeah.
Who knows, you might just discover a new passion or rediscover an old one.
And isn't that what life is all about? Discovering those things that light us up and make us feel truly alive?
Well said. That's a wrap on our deep dive into reclaiming our brains from digital overload.
It's been a great conversation.
It has.
A lot to think about.
Yeah, we hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical tips for creating a more balanced and fulfilling life.
Yeah.
Both online and off.
Absolutely.
Remember, it's all about finding a balance that works for you.
And taking those small steps every day to cultivate a healthier relationship with technology.
And with ourselves.
And with ourselves, yes.
Yeah.
And we believe that with a little bit of effort, we can all reclaim our brains and live our best lives, both online and off. Until next time, stay curious and stay connected in the real world. That is.
See you out there?
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Lincoln Bio podcast. Want to dive deeper into today's topic? Grab your copy now. Just click the link in the description. Stay curious, stay empowered, and we'll see you next time.